In this video, I'm going to attempt to solo Baron as an Arcane Mage in Season of Discovery Phase 1. Right off the bat, I'm going to show off how to kill these Snapclaws, as well as Murlocs later up. Basically, there are mobs in this instance that are really easy to kill. You can use your normal Arcane Rotation if you want. You can also AoE them up and use Living Bomb, it doesn't really matter. These guys go down easy, and as you can see, they're also humanoids for some reason, so you can sheep them, although I don't see anything humanoid about them. There aren't too many mob types in this video that I have trouble with, but the Naga up ahead in the background that you can see patrolling is one of them. I tried for, I don't know, 5 or 6 deaths before I gave up trying to actually kill him one-on-one, and what we end up doing is just going around him. So you'll see that in a bit. He pats with 2 Murlocs. I would suggest pulling those Murlocs separate from him, so for some reason if you aggro them, you don't aggro him. I don't know why. So you can kill those 2 guys pretty easily. Even if he does aggro, you could probably pull some crazy thing where you get the Murlocs down while surviving. For now, we just skip him. So I'm going to go ahead and cut to that part. Once you zone in and the Naga is patrolling away from you, move up into this cubby area and then go right. I don't know if there are other spots that you can dodge him, but this is how I use it. So there's this corner here next to the bones, and you can just hang out here. He takes a while to patrol, so I'm going to skip ahead. Once he shows back up, wait for him to pass. He goes pretty far past you, so it's not really a problem, and then just run on by. Up ahead on the beach, there are more Snapclaws and Murlocs. You can AoE them down, one-on-one, doesn't really matter, pick how you want, but I already killed him. So instead, what you're going to see is me killing the Priestess. How this boss fight works is there are 3 stones with 3 Priestess summoning at them. You need to kill the Priestess first, and then kill the elemental that summons after. The one thing you need to worry about during this fight is their heal. Once they get below 50% life, they will cast heal as much as possible. It's essentially a full heal. And I kind of screwed up, so I didn't realize that. This is the first time I'm fighting one of these things. I end up wasting Counterspell on a Frostbolt. You're going to see right there. When they can't cast Frostbolt, they do melee. It doesn't hit really too hard, it doesn't really matter, but as you can see, below 50, they start casting that heal, and it's a full heal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut ahead to basically a full reset on this mob. I line of sight, I use evocation, get my mana back. So this is how the fight is supposed to look, and you're going to be doing this 2 more times for a total of 3. Just do a bunch of damage as much as possible. As soon as the Priestess is under 50, counterspell that first heal. You're going to have 10 seconds to try to kill it. Probably won't be able to do it. So what do you do when your counterspell's on cooldown, but they're attempting to heal? You can just use Polymorph as a pseudo interrupt. And you're going to see me do it, I think, once or twice here, where my counterspell is ticking. They really want to heal, so after this Frostbolt, I think they pop it. What I do is I just go for the Polymorph into Fire Blast to instantly pop them out, so they don't heal at all from that. This final one, we just kill them through it. So that's how you kill the Priestess, and now we're going to move on to the first Guardian. In this part, I'm going to show off how I originally kill this Torrent Elemental. In the future, I would not do it this way. This one in particular summons storms, and I think how you're supposed to handle these storms is getting into the water. For some reason, I didn't think about it at the time, so I actually run across the beach, I kite, I do a bunch of stuff. It is way harder than it should be. But yeah, I mean, this part will show off just how strong mage healing is. If you haven't tried it, definitely roll an alt, give it a go. It's been my favorite part of Season of Discovery so far, but the difficulty with this is you have to move around, so while you're moving, you're not casting, you're not doing damage, you're not healing. These fights do tend to last long enough that you can use Living Flame like multiple times. I think I'm just trying to get like a 4-stack Arcane Blast into a Living Flame, which you don't need to do, you can do it however. I am going to show off a weird thing that happens though with Counterspell. So on each of these 3 elementals, for whatever reason, their only attack is Frostbolt. If you counterspell that Frostbolt, they just sit there looking at you. They can still cast their extra ability, so in this case, it's the Storm. But yeah, this guy, you think he's going to come up in melee, but he has no ability to melee you. He's just kind of hanging out. So what that means is you should be using your counterspell on cooldown against these guys. Another thing you might be thinking about is mana. How am I going to have enough mana for this fight, for the boss fight? How does it work? Well, you see the bubbles in the water, they actually give you mana back. At this point in my attempts, I did not realize that. And it's actually right after this elemental, when I fight the next one, that I realize, oh, this is actually going to be super easy. Also, they might patch my strategy, because these bubbles are overpowered. Once again, homie's just walking up, can't cast anything. Get this guy down, and we'll move on to the next Torrent Elemental / Guardian / whatever his name is. Up next is the Riptide Elemental. This one cannot be moved, so even if you counterspell him, he's not going to move towards you. He's just going to sit there doing nothing. He summons the Riptides in the water, which if you get hit by them, they pull you straight down. And if you get hit by them multiple times, it might be enough to keep you under to where you die because you run out of breath. Right here, you're going to see my Eureka moment. So obviously, you want to use these bubbles when you're underwater so you have unending breath. But it turns out they also give you a ton of mana back. And as soon as I saw that, I knew instantly that I was going to be able to kill this boss. I was going to be able to kill anything in here if I wanted, except for that patrolling Naga at the start. Those guys are beastly. So just sit yourself on this little bubble. If a Riptide shows up, it doesn't really matter. And just kill this guy. We're going to skip ahead to the third and last Guardian. This guy's also tough. The Fathom Elemental uses the Depth Charge ability, and that's the ability that everybody knows on this fight because it knocks everybody back. It shoots you up into the air. So all I do is I just summon the guy, get to the edge, and lodge myself into the wall, and then, just face tank him, basically. As with all the other elementals, counterspell on cooldown. Make sure that you're checking the depth charge timer so that try to line it up so it doesn't interrupt a cast, especially a heal. That could kind of lead to your death. I died a few times throughout this whole process of learning all of this, but I'm very confident now. If I go back in and attempt this again, I could one-shot everything. I actually end up two-shotting the boss. The first attempt, I was actually in awe that it was as easy as it was. I think what I'm doing might get nerfed. We'll see if they make any changes. That'll be the first time in my history that I've caused anything like that. But because it's just the first boss, and there isn't too crazy, like you lock yourself into a 1 out of 7 dungeon, it isn't super beneficial. It'll probably go the whole way. So if you're a mage and for some reason you want an item off this first boss, and you don't have time to do the full raid or whatever, I don't know, you could do this. But I wouldn't recommend it. This was all for the challenge. This is all for the love of the game. In my last video, I actually thought I had run out of stuff to solo in Phase 1, but at the time I had no idea that I could actually solo a raid boss, so I'm really happy with how this one turned out. Once this third and final Guardian comes down, the boss is going to be unlocked, and before we get into the actual fight, I'm going to explain my strategy, my spec, my gear, and I will post logs below for you to take a look at. The spec I'm going is your basic Arcane Healer spec, but with 5 out of 5 in magic absorption. It was initially what I thought was going to be able to keep my mana going for this fight. The reality is you do not really need it. You can just use the bubble, but it gives you an extra 10 frost res, which is pretty important, I would say. Speaking of frost res, I'm using 3 items to get what I need. 2 amber hoops of frost resistance. These should be pretty cheap on the auction house. I'm using minor magic resist potions throughout the fight, so it only lasts 3 minutes. You'll probably need 2 of them. And then a Scroll of Arcane Protection, which is new in SOD, that gives you 20 frost resistance for the duration of the fight. So what is the strategy that makes this possible? Well, find this bubble, lodge yourself so that if you get depth charged, you actually just hit this rock and blow him up. It is as simple as that. I didn't want it to be. I had a whole plan for how I was going to do this fight. I saw the other video where the Warlock was going ham. But yeah, you can just sit here and just fight him one-on-one. So the mechanics that he has, the storms, the depth charge, and the riptides, the only one that affects you is the depth charge. When you're underwater, the storms don't hit you, and you're far enough below the surface that the riptides also won't hit you. So similar to the other elemental that you fought before, make sure you're not interrupting your heals or your damage when that depth charge is going to go off. But outside of that, you have basically infinite mana to play with. You can heal yourself up whenever you need to. You can spam 4 Arcane Blasts in a row and get a Giga Arcane Missiles. You can get a Giga Heal. It really is that easy. The first time that I die here, I think it's because of an unlucky string of resists as well as an interrupt on something. But most of the time, right, I think this fight is 6 minutes long, so you're going to have 6 living flames going throughout the process. And one of the other mechanics that he has is this bubble beam thing, where he just stops using Frostbolt, he shoots a bunch of bubbles out in front of him, and then does like a 360 or a 180 or something. During this time, you take no damage. It's really a way for you to get back up to full life if you're struggling, and just kind of like a soft reset. You can use this over and over again, so try to get to those points. I don't think you're taking enough damage that you will die eventually. Like, I don't think you need the resists. The resists just make it a lot easier for you. It's also just a chance of, like, are you low when a depth charge is put out? Are you going to get interrupted at, like, the worst possible time? I don't know. But anyways, that's basically going to do it for the next, like, 4 or 5 minutes. I'm just doing the same thing. So, as always, thanks for watching, guys. Like, subscribe, comment. I'm still having a lot of fun with Season of Discovery. Hope you guys are too. And I will see you dudes in the next one.